Today I'm going to do a shootout between three chromatic harmonicas. The JDR GM0648, the Hohner CX12, and the Suzuki SCX48. Now, these range from around $100 to $300. Yes, chromatics are more expensive than diatonics, but I think they are great choices for diatonic players who are looking to dip their toes into the waters of chromatic. So I'm going to compare their build quality, playability, and sound. Then I'll tell you who each of them is best suited for. And finally, I'll tell you what and just a quick disclaimer, I did pay for all of these harmonicas myself, and I'm going to be honest about how I feel. I did try other cheaper harmonicas, and they didn't make the cut. And that's why I'm not going to talk about them here. Okay, so these are all well-built chromatic harmonicas, and that means that they all feel solid, have a smooth slider, and are nice in your hands. So what are the differences? I only paid $100 for the JDR GM0648. And you can get it in other colors. I just like pink, so that's why I have a pink one. And it represents unbelievable value for money. And it really holds its own against the Suzuki SCX48 at 3 times the price. Now, the Suzuki definitely feels higher quality, but it should. It's nearly $300. The only annoying thing about the Suzuki is fingerprints on this highly polished cover plate. It's an absolute nightmare to keep clean, and that drives me nuts. The Hohner CX12 is very different. It's not a classically designed harmonica. It's got this one-piece case design made out of plastic, and it does feel plasticky. And some people are going to hate that. Some people will love it. The big positive of it being plastic is that it's very nice and light. And personally, I find the plastic design charming. The slide feels a little bit chunky, but that's the price to pay for something that's much easier to take apart and clean than the other two. Let's go on to playability. So all three harmonicas play really well. They are all very airtight across all 3 octaves of the instrument. And that should be normal these days, but it's not. And if you don't have an airtight chromatic harmonica, you're going to find it very hard to play, and that's going to be very off-putting. They also all have nice, smooth, rounded mouthpieces, which means that they feel nice when you put them in your mouth. So what are the important differences between all of these? So the JDR has the lightest feeling reeds of all 3 harmonicas. And that means that you're going to need to exercise a little bit of control so as not to play it too hard. But it also means that it's very easy to play. Now, the Suzuki has much stiffer reeds, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. It gives you a lot of control over the volume and dynamics of your playing, and I like having a little bit of resistance when I'm playing, so that suits me well. Finally, the Hohner sits between the JDR and the Suzuki in terms of how the reeds feel. They're brass and a little bit stiffer than the JDR, but not as stiff as the Suzuki. And that gives you access to a lot of finesse in your playing, but doesn't feel like hard work. Now, the final thing to talk about is the slide. So that's this bit, the button on the side, right? So the Suzuki and the JDR both have these rounded buttons, which feel fine, but give you a smaller area to work with. Whereas the Hohner has this big chunky button here that is a lot easier to hit. You won't accidentally miss it. Now, over time, as you get used to playing, it's not going to be an issue, but it's just something to bear in mind at the beginning. Let's have a listen to what they sound like. All 3 harmonicas are in tune across the whole range, so we don't need to worry about that. Let's compare what they sound like. We'll look at the JDR first. Okay, now let's try the Hohner. Okay, now let's try the Suzuki. Okay, so the JDR is a tiny bit thinner sounding, but not by much. The Hohner is a little bit warmer, and the Suzuki is the meatiest. And one thing to bear in mind is that the Hohner slide is a little noisy. This is not a problem unless you're recording chromatic in a studio with a very sensitive microphone. But it's just something for you to be aware of. Okay, so who are each of these harmonicas for? The JDR is for anyone who wants to dip their toes into the chromatic waters and not waste time being held back by a poor quality instrument. It's also great for more invested players to have as a spare or for practicing in the car. Next, the Hohner CX12. This one is obviously for Darth Vader. But in all seriousness, the CX12 is great for someone who wants a high quality chromatic which is easy to maintain. You can take it apart so easily. And also, if you're not afraid of something that's a little bit less classic in its styling, stay away if you don't like plastic. Finally, the Suzuki. This is the Rolls-Royce or Cadillac of this selection. When I asked some of my chromatic pals what the best chromatic to start with was, they all suggested the Suzuki. And I would recommend it for someone who just wants to go straight to having an amazing chromatic harmonica, which they will never outgrow. Finally, what do I play? This is a bit of a problem for me, because up until recently, it was always the Suzuki. Just so beautiful. But then Hohner sent me something pretty cool. Yep, it's a pink CX12. And now this is the one that I reach for. Not because it's the best, but because it makes me smile a lot more. If you are curious about learning chromatic, you should check out my Introduction to Chromatic Harmonica course. All you need to do is click on the link in the description below to find out more. And if you have any questions about chromatic, just post them in the comments below. All right, thank you so much for watching. Happy harping.